Tom was a 34-year-old architect, and life seemed perfect. He had a good job, a beautiful home, and a wife he loved deeply, Sarah. They had been married for 6 years and had built a life together. Their home was cozy, and they shared many happy memories. They enjoyed the simple things, like cooking dinner together, going on walks, and having weekend trips. Tom thought they were in a happy, stable marriage. Sarah, his wife, was a freelance writer. She was smart, caring, and always supportive of Tom's work. The couple didn't have any children yet, but they had been talking about starting a family soon. They were excited about their future together. Everything seemed to be falling into place. One day, Sarah decided to take a girls' trip with her friends to a beach resort. Tom was happy for her and encouraged her to go, saying it would be great for her to relax. They talked before she left, and Tom promised to stay in touch while she was away. He believed everything was fine, that Sarah just needed a break, and that he would be here waiting for her when she got back. Before she left, Sarah seemed a little distracted, but Tom thought it was just the stress of preparing for the trip. He kissed her goodbye, and they both agreed to keep in touch. Little did Tom know this trip would change everything. When Sarah came back, everything he thought he knew about their marriage was about to be turned upside down. Sarah came home from her trip looking happy and excited. She had a big smile on her face as she walked through the door, and she immediately hugged Tom, telling him how great her time had been with her friends. Tom was happy to see her and asked her all about the trip. He wanted to know how the beach was, how the girls were, and if she had fun. But as Sarah talked, something felt off. She was a little too cheerful, almost like she was trying too hard to hide something. When Tom asked specific questions about the trip, Sarah would quickly change the subject. She kept saying how amazing everything was, but the details she gave were vague. It seemed like she was hiding something, but Tom couldn't figure out what it was. Over the next few days, Sarah was more distant than usual. She seemed distracted. Normally, after a trip, she would be full of stories and excited to share every detail. But this time, she didn't seem interested in talking much about it. When they did talk, it felt forced. Sarah spent a lot of time on her phone, texting or checking social media. She was less focused on Tom than before, and whenever he tried to talk to her, she would often make excuses to leave the conversation. Tom began to feel confused. At first, he thought it was just because Sarah was tired from her trip, but as the days went by, he began to worry. He had known Sarah for a long time, and he could tell when something wasn't right. She was no longer the loving and open wife he was used to. One night, Tom asked her if everything was okay. "You seem a little distant," he said gently, trying not to upset her. Sarah smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm just tired," she replied quickly, brushing off his concern. But Tom didn't feel convinced. The next day, Sarah suggested they take some time to talk about their relationship. She said, "I've been thinking a lot, and I think I need some space. I'm not sure about everything right now." Her words were soft, but they made Tom's heart sink. He didn't understand why she would feel that way. Everything had been fine before she left for the trip. They had been happy, or so Tom thought. "I just need some time to myself," Sarah added, looking away from Tom as she spoke. "Maybe I've been feeling a little lost lately." Tom didn't know how to react. He wanted to fix it, to understand what had changed. But Sarah wouldn't give him any more details. She just said she needed space to think. Tom didn't want to pressure her, so he agreed to give her some space. But in his heart, he started to feel a sense of worry growing. Why had she changed so much? Why was she acting this way after the trip? He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Every time Sarah looked at him, it felt like she was seeing him through a different lens. He wasn't sure what it was, but something was missing. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah's behavior didn't improve. She still seemed distant and less interested in spending time with Tom. Even when they did spend time together, she was preoccupied with her phone or her thoughts. The affection she used to show him, the small touches or the loving conversations, were no longer there. Tom was beginning to feel like a stranger in his own home. He tried to talk to her again, asking if there was something wrong, but Sarah always gave him vague answers. She said she was just figuring things out. "I'm going through a lot right now," she said one night. "I just need time to think." But Tom didn't know how much longer he could wait for answers. He needed to know what was really going on. He loved Sarah, and he wanted to believe everything would be okay. But her distance made him feel like their connection was slipping away. One evening, after several weeks of feeling disconnected, Tom had had enough. He could no longer ignore the way Sarah was acting. The emotional distance between them had grown, and the small, quiet conversations they used to have had turned into awkward silences. Something was wrong, and Tom couldn't stand the uncertainty anymore. That night, after dinner, Tom decided to sit down with Sarah. He had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. He found her sitting on the couch, looking out the window, lost in thought. Her phone was beside her, and she kept glancing at it, almost nervously. "Sarah, we need to talk," Tom said, sitting down next to her. His voice was calm, but inside his heart was racing. He could feel the tension in the air. Sarah turned to him, her eyes avoiding his. "What's wrong, Tom?" she asked softly, but there was something distant in her voice. "I don't know what's going on with you lately," Tom began, his voice shaking a little, "but I can feel it. You've been distant, and I don't understand why. I need you to tell me the truth. What happened while you were on that trip? What's really going on, Sarah?" Sarah's face turned pale. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then hesitated. Tom could see the struggle in her eyes. He knew she wasn't going to get away with avoiding the question. I don't know how to say this," Sarah whispered, looking down at her hands. "I never meant for it to happen, Tom. But while I was on the trip, I got involved with someone else." Tom's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. His heart sank, and his mind raced, trying to make sense of her words. What do you mean, you got involved with someone else?" Tom asked, his voice rising in shock. Sarah took a deep breath and looked him in the eyes. "I didn't plan for it to happen, but when I was at the resort, I met a man. We started talking, and over the course of the trip, I got closer to him, and it ended up being more than just talking. I slept with him, Tom. I'm so sorry." Tom sat in stunned silence. His world felt like it was collapsing around him. He couldn't believe what Sarah had just confessed. The woman he loved, his wife, had been unfaithful to him while on the trip he had encouraged her to take. His mind spun with thought of anger, hurt, and confusion. "Why, Sarah?" Tom finally asked, his voice trembling. "Why did you do this? After everything we've been through, how could you do this to me?" Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she looked at him. "I never meant to hurt you, Tom. It was a mistake, a huge mistake. I felt lost. I don't know what happened, but I needed something. I needed to feel something different, something alive. And I thought maybe this would fix things. But it didn't. It only made everything worse." Tom's heart was breaking as he listened to Sarah's explanation. It felt like she was speaking from a place of guilt and regret, but it didn't change the pain he felt. How could she betray him like this? How could she hide something so huge from him? "Do you even love me anymore?" Tom asked, his voice quiet. His hands were shaking, and he could feel the tears threatening to spill, but he held them back. "I do love you, Tom," Sarah said quickly, reaching out to him. "I never stopped loving you, but I've been so confused lately. I felt like we were growing apart, like we weren't the same as before. And then this happened, and I got lost in it. But I swear I regret it. I want to fix this. I want us to be okay again." Tom pulled away from her, unable to hear any more. Her words felt empty to him now. He couldn't believe that the woman he had trusted with everything could betray him like this. The trust he had built with Sarah over the years had been shattered in an instant. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Sarah," Tom said, his voice low. "How can I go back to the way things were? How can I look at you the same way after this? You broke something in me." Sarah cried softly, her face filled with regret and fear. "Please, Tom, I know I've hurt you, but I need you to understand it was a mistake. I want to make it right. I don't want to lose you." Tom stood up, pacing the room, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. "You've already lost me," he whispered to himself, though loud enough for Sarah to hear. "How can I trust you again? How can I believe in us after what you've done?" He stopped in front of her, his heart heavy. "I need time, Sarah. I don't know what to say or do right now. I need space to think." Sarah nodded, her face filled with sadness. "I understand. I'm so sorry, Tom. I never wanted to hurt you." As Tom walked out of the room, he felt like his world was crumbling. The woman he had loved and trusted was gone, and he wasn't sure how or if he could ever find his way back to the life he once knew. The days after Sarah's confession were some of the hardest Tom had ever faced. The shock of what she had done weighed heavily on his heart, and every time he looked at her, he felt a pain that was hard to explain. He loved Sarah, but the trust between them had been broken in a way that was hard to fix. Tom spent the next few days in a daze, struggling to figure out what to do next. At first, Tom tried to go about his normal routine. He went to work, met with friends, and tried to distract himself, but everything felt wrong. His mind kept returning to Sarah's confession. The thought of her with another man haunted him, and it made him feel sick to his stomach. Even when she apologized, it didn't seem enough. The love they had shared now felt like a distant memory. Tom spent a lot of time alone, trying to make sense of everything. He didn't want to jump into any decisions too quickly. He knew he needed time to think, but he also felt the pressure to act. He couldn't stay in this emotional limbo forever. The pain of betrayal was intense. Tom felt angry, hurt, and confused, but he also felt a deep sadness. He had built his life around Sarah, and now it felt like everything had crumbled. He began to question everything: his trust, his choices, and the future he had imagined with her. Could he ever go back to the way things were? Could he ever forgive her and move forward? In the midst of this emotional turmoil, Tom decided to reach out to his best friend, Mark. Mark had always been there for him, through thick and thin. Tom knew he needed someone to talk to, someone who would listen without judgment. That evening, Tom met Mark at a local cafe. Mark could see the pain in Tom's eyes as soon as he sat down. Without saying a word, Mark ordered 2 cups of coffee, knowing this conversation would be heavy. Tom took a deep breath and began to explain everything. He told Mark about the trip, Sarah's affair, and the weeks of emotional distance that had followed. Mark listened quietly, nodding occasionally, but never interrupting. "I just don't know what to do," Tom said, his voice filled with frustration. "I love her, but she betrayed me in the worst possible way. I can't stop thinking about it. Every time I look at her, I can't shake the thought of her with him. I don't know if I can ever trust her again." Mark took a long sip of his coffee, thinking carefully before responding. "Tom, I can't tell you what to do, but I know you have to do what's best for you. You can't keep living like this. It's not healthy to stay in a relationship where trust is broken and where you're constantly questioning everything. You have to think about what makes you happy and what you need to heal." Tom nodded slowly, listening to his friend's words. It was hard to admit, but deep down, he knew Mark was right. He couldn't keep living in pain, trying to rebuild something that might never be the same again. But the idea of leaving Sarah, of ending their marriage, felt impossible. He had loved her for so long, and the thought of walking away from everything they had built was terrifying. Later that night, Tom came home to an empty house. Sarah had gone out to run some errands, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Tom sat down on the couch, his mind racing. He thought about the good times, the memories they had shared, but he also thought about the pain Sarah had caused. Could he really forgive her? Could he forget what had happened? After a few hours, Sarah came home. She walked in quietly, her eyes immediately searching for Tom. When she saw him sitting on the couch, she took a deep breath and walked over to him. "I'm so sorry, Tom," she said softly, sitting down beside him. "I know I've hurt you, and I can't take back what I did, but I want to fix things. I want to try to make things right. Please, let me show you how sorry I am." Tom looked at her for a moment, his heart heavy with conflicting emotions. He loved her, but he couldn't ignore the fact that she had betrayed him. The trust between them had been broken, and Tom wasn't sure if it could ever be rebuilt. But he knew he couldn't make a decision based on anger or fear. He needed time, and he needed to think about what he truly wanted. "Sarah," Tom began, his voice steady but calm, "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can move past this. I need some time to figure out what's best for me. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't just pretend that everything is okay. I need to process this. I need space." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded. "I understand, Tom. I just want you to know how sorry I am. I never meant for this to happen. I love you, and I'll do anything to make it right." Tom took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before him. He knew that moving forward would be difficult, and he didn't have all the answers. But for now, he had to take a step back and focus on himself. He needed to heal, to find peace, and to figure out what was best for his future. Whether that meant staying with Sarah or moving on, he didn't know yet. For the first time in weeks, Tom felt a small sense of calm. He had made the decision to take control of his life. He couldn't change the past, but he could choose his future. The days after Tom made his decision were filled with a mixture of emotions. The pain of Sarah's betrayal still lingered, but for the first time in a long while, Tom felt like he was beginning to take control of his own life. The decision to take space, to focus on his own healing, was one of the hardest he had ever made. But it was also the first step toward finding peace again. Tom spent more time doing things he had neglected over the years. He focused on his work, throwing himself into his architecture projects with a renewed sense of purpose. He started going to the gym again, something he had stopped doing, because he was so focused on his relationship. Slowly, he began to rediscover parts of himself that had been hidden under the weight of the pain he had been carrying. He also spent time with friends, reconnecting with people he hadn't seen in a while. They were supportive and understanding, but they also reminded him that he deserved to be happy. Tom realized that, no matter what happened with Sarah, he needed to be the best version of himself. As the weeks passed, Tom began to feel stronger. He wasn't completely healed, and he still thought about Sarah every day. But he was no longer consumed by the pain. He was learning to live for himself again, and that was something he had forgotten how to do. Then one evening, Sarah called. She asked to meet with him, to talk. Tom agreed, knowing that it was time to face her and find closure, whether that meant moving forward together or separately. They met at a cafe, where Sarah apologized once more, explaining that she was truly sorry for everything. She promised a change, but Tom knew deep down that things could never go back to the way they were. The trust had been broken, and it was something that couldn't be fixed overnight. After a long conversation, Tom made his final decision. He told Sarah that, while he appreciated her apology, he needed to move on. He needed to let go of the past and focus on his future. It was painful, but it was the right choice. Tom walked away from the meeting feeling a sense of relief. The journey ahead would still be hard, but he knew that he had made the right choice for himself. Moving forward wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to embrace the new chapter of his life.